Picture this. You sit down at your computer, you move your mouse to the bottom corner of the screen, and you click the Windows Start menu. But instead of popping up instantly, your screen completely freezes. You sit there and wait.
30 minutes. For some actual, real-world users, opening that simple Start menu inexplicably took 30 minutes. Half an hour, literally just to see a menu. Now, your first thought is probably, okay, they definitely had a terrible virus or some completely broken hardware, right? Nope, the hardware was perfectly fine.
So, why does the simple Start menu take 30 minutes to load? Well, the culprit was actually a hidden piece of math. A quadratic time algorithm was struggling behind the scenes to arrange just 10,000 invisible desktop icons in a grid layout. You see, the operating system allowed users to organize files on their desktop, and a specific algorithm executed every single time the Start menu launched just to arrange these icons column by column. And because of the way this algorithm scaled, simply hiding the icons didn't stop the math from running. 10,000 icons literally equaled 30 minutes of a completely locked-up computer.
And that is exactly what we are going to fix today. By the end of this explainer, you will understand exactly how to predict if your code is going to run in a few lightning-fast milliseconds or if it's going to outlast the universe. We'll cover time and space complexity, Big O notation, predicting orders of growth, and how to prevent real-world code disasters like that 30-minute Start menu.
Okay, let's jump straight into Section 1, Why Stopwatches Aren't Enough, or the Limits of Experimental Analysis.
Now, you might be asking a very logical, student-style question right about now. Why not just use a stopwatch on a running program to see how fast it is? This is what computer scientists call experimental analysis. And look, it's great for finding performance bugs in live systems, like if an e-commerce checkout is lagging and costing millions in lost revenue, but it has massive limits. The main reason? Experimental analysis requires a fully built, fully functioning program. Building large systems is incredibly expensive and time-consuming. Plus, your stopwatch results are going to wildly fluctuate depending on the processing power or memory of the specific computer running the code. We really need a way to compare algorithm designs long before we spend the time and money actually building them.
And that is exactly where asymptotic analysis comes in. This is essentially the secret to predicting efficiency. Instead of timing how long a program takes on a specific laptop, asymptotic analysis evaluates the time an algorithm takes to produce a result as the size of the input gets bigger and bigger. We don't need executable code. We just need to understand the logic.
Moving right along to Section 2, Time and Space Complexity, or Measuring the Unseen.
To actually measure these unseen forces, computer scientists use two formal metrics: time complexity, which measures the time required during execution, and space complexity, which measures the memory required. Let's make this concrete with a real-life analogy. Imagine you have a giant physical dictionary, and you want to find a specific word using a sequential search algorithm. Here are your steps. Start at the beginning. Check if the first word is the target. If yes, stop. If no, move to the next word and repeat. Now, instead of counting every tiny micro-action, like moving your eyes or physically turning a page, we choose a simple cost model. In this case, our cost model is simply counting the number of repetitions.
Now here is a really common student confusion. If we know the dictionary has exactly 100,000 words, don't we know exactly how long the search will take? Well, not quite. We actually have to account for variations based on the data itself, not just the size. Think about it. We have a best-case situation. The word you want happens to be the very first word in the dictionary. Boom, it takes exactly 1 repetition. But we also have a worst-case situation. The word is on the very last page, or maybe it's not even in the dictionary at all. In that scenario, it takes 100,000 repetitions.
Which brings us to Section 3, Understanding Big O notation, the language of efficiency.
Because we want to absolutely guarantee our software won't crash under pressure, computer scientists tend to focus heavily on that worst-case scenario. And to do that, we use Big O notation. Big O is a mathematical notation actually applied back in the 1970s to measure worst-case complexity and formally define what we call the order of growth. Think of the order of growth as a geometric prediction. Given the size of the problem, which we usually call n, how many resources are we going to need as n gets infinitely larger?
Let's map our dictionary search directly onto this concept. In our best case, finding the word on the very first try, we call this O of 1, or constant time. The time stays perfectly constant no matter how incredibly massive the dictionary gets. But our worst case, where we have to read every single word, is O of n, or linear time. If the dictionary size doubles, the worst-case search time doubles right along with it. But wait, what if we use a smarter strategy? What if, instead of reading page by page, we use binary search to rule out half the elements every step? Imagine opening the dictionary exactly in the middle. We check if our word comes before or after that middle page, and then we literally tear the book in half and throw away the half we don't need. We just ruled out half the elements in a single step. Because we eliminate half the remaining data every single repetition, its worst-case time drops to O log n, or logarithmic time. It is incredibly efficient.
All right, Section 4, Comparing Orders of Growth, or the Scaling Trap.
The absolutely crucial point here is understanding how drastically different these formulas behave when we throw massive amounts of data at them. Let's look at what happens when the input is simply doubled. If your code is O1, constant, doubling the input requires 0 additional resources. It is completely flat. If it's O log n, logarithmic, like our tearing the dictionary in half method, doubling a massive data set only adds exactly 1 additional resource unit, 1 single extra step. If it's O(n) linear, doubling the input takes exactly 2 times the resources. But what about O(n) squared quadratic? Doubling the input takes 4 times the resources.
Wait, this is important, so let's pause right here. Quadrupling the input for an O(n) squared algorithm requires 16 times the resources. This growth compounds aggressively. This is exactly the trap Microsoft fell into. Their desktop icon sorting algorithm was O(n) squared. For a few dozen icons, it took microseconds. But as users dumped thousands of files onto their desktops, that quadratic curve just skyrocketed, asking the computer for millions of operations and effectively freezing the machine for 30 minutes.
And honestly, O(n) squared isn't even the absolute bottom of the barrel. What happens if we run an exponential algorithm, where the resources required double with every single new item added on a relatively tiny dataset of just 1,000 elements? It would take longer than the current age of the universe to compute. No joke, just 1,000 elements. This staggering reality is why performance engineers are so incredibly meticulous. In real-world applications handling large data, algorithm designers must strictly target O of n, O log n, or O of 1. If you go beyond that, you're asking for a complete system failure. Let's bring it all home. Section 5, Summary and Key Takeaways. Wrapping it up.
So, what is our lecture summary? First, stopwatches totally failed to predict how code behaves at scale. We have to use asymptotic analysis. Second, Big O notation is the math language we use to formally label worst-case complexity. Third, predicting orders of growth is the only way to dictate performance on large datasets. And finally, target O of 1 or O of n if you want to prevent real-world code disasters and avoid software lockups.
But before we finish, let's connect this to the real world. Why does this matter beyond just avoiding an annoying laggy menu? As our source material beautifully points out, saving even a few percentage points of resources can lead to significantly reduced time, money, and energy expenditure, key to a green energy future. As the global demand for computing power just absolutely explodes, writing efficient code is not just a math exercise anymore. Performance engineers using these concepts to save server time and electricity are quite literally building the foundation for a sustainable green digital world. So, the next time you write a line of code, ask yourself, is this going to run in a millisecond, or is it going to outlast the universe?